Hello everyone. I've been away for quite a while, but I was by no means giving up on the channel. So this is a new video. This is something I have been, planning for quite a while. This video is going to be about using scriptable objects as static, data holders, static variables. And before I start, let me give you kind of an explanation of what we're trying to do here and why it matters. First of all, imagine you have a lot of game objects. Usually, these game objects need to communicate with each other for a lot of reasons. First of all, there are a lot of variables like, let's say, gold amount, or let's say this is an enemy and it has health. A lot of people, especially UI, if it's showing the health bar of the player or the enemy or whatever, is interested in knowing how much health the enemy has left. Okay. So if we divide the screen, let's say this is the in-game objects, let's say this is the UI, and let's say this is memory. Okay. So usually these three things have to communicate with each other. Now, if the player loses some health, the UI needs to reduce the health bar. Okay, so now what do we do? Either we fire an event, like let's say we fire an event, and the UI is listening to that event. But in a way, you have chained these two things together, or these two things are now kind of coupled. So a lot of people do this thing. Like what they do is they make a manager who has the event. Okay, so and this approach is used by I actually use this approach a lot as well, and many people do. Your object fires this event, and this object is listening to this event. Okay, so you have tons of events in your event manager singleton, and this stays in all the levels because it's do not destroy on load. So your UI listens to this. But again, you have coupled this with this and this with this. So both of these things are now coupled with each other. Another thing people do is static variables. So you could have a class with a lot of static variables. People usually call those classes constant holders or game constants or something like that. So where you have a lot of constants or some values which a lot of people are going to be using. So whenever gold is updated, you go and update here, and whoever needs to know about gold goes here. Okay, these are all approaches which leave something to be desired. And what I am suggesting to use is, and I have been using this with a lot of benefit and you could say convenience, is since there's a thing called scriptable objects in Unity, and those actually can be used in a way which you could say is a sanctioned way, because there is nothing that says you cannot use them like that. Is if you have a scriptable object sitting in your assets and it has gold amount in it, okay, it has a variable called gold in it, you could basically drop a reference here and you could drop a reference here. If this guy changes the gold value, this guy will automatically be able to access the updated value. Okay, so no communication happened between these two. And imagine there were 10 other people who were interested in the latest gold value. Those people will now have instant access to the gold value as well, without them having to know who changed it or how. So this is the approach we're going to be implementing, and I'm going to show you why this approach works and why this approach is very convenient, especially in Unity. Okay, so first of all, what we're going to do is imagine these two cubes need to communicate with each other. We're going to implement that health example and a gold example. Okay, let me quickly create a UI slider, and let me imagine this is the health bar. Okay, so let's for now imagine this is our health bar. Okay, and our cube number 1 and 2 need to communicate with each other. One of them is going to have health, which the slider is tracking, and the other one is going to have going to be increasing or decreasing gold. Okay, so let's add another UI object. Let's say gold amount. Okay, so this one is going to be tracking the gold amount. Okay, so this is all just, you know, sample text, so I'm not going to bother with how the UI is looking at this point. This is just to show you the concept. Okay, so this box will going to be showing us the gold amount. What we are going to achieve with this is none of them will talk to each other, but the gold amount and everything else is going to be working properly. Okay, so first of all, let's create our variable. Okay, so what the platform, or let's say the concept we're creating, is going to be called global variables. Okay, so we're going to create something new conceptually, and we're going to call it global variables. Okay, so these are global variables. So first of all, we want to create a, let's say, float global variable. Okay, there we could further make more kinds, string, int, all of them are going to basically be the same thing. Each of these variables has the ability to be referenced by anyone without, you know, them having to talk to each other. So these are kind of global repositories of data which people can reference without, you know, having to know who's updating and what. So first of all, we are going to quickly do this. And then what I'm going to do is switch it to scriptable object. Then I'm going to go here and why is it not happy? Oh, okay. Then I'm going to do this, and then I am going to add global variables, this here. So basically all of these go neatly into sub menu. Let me show you why. But press right click, global variable, float global variable. So you could have a lot of different kind of variables here. So first of all, we're going to create a float one to convey the idea, and you can create way more types of data, even custom data types as well. Okay, so let's say float variable is first of all going to have a public float value called value. Okay, value. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to encapsulate it as a property. So people are going to be accessing this property, not this one, but I am going to make it serialized. So we can actually see it in the inspector. Okay, now we have a way to change this value through this property, and we have a way to see it in the inspector. One more thing is, a lot of people would be interested in knowing when this value gets changed. Okay, so for that, the most convenient method is to fire an event whenever this value gets changed. And Unity, I'm going to make it a Unity event because people would want the ease of, you know, firing certain things right in the inspector if the value of the gold gets changed or something. So to give them this ability, I am going to make a, and I'm going to call it on value changed. Okay, so there are going to be tons of different kinds of float variables. One could be for gold, one could be for wood, one could be for, let's say, metal, and whatever your game is about, what kind of resources your game has, or what kind of, or anything you want to keep count of. Okay, so on value changed, this event, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here. Nope. For some reason it's yes. Okay, so I'm going to do this, and whenever someone sets a new value, I'm going to fire this event. Okay, dot invoke. Okay, so whenever someone sets a new value for gold, I want this event to be fired for all those who are interested in knowing when this value was changed. Then other things you could do for the ease of convenience is uh, these are totally optional, but you could do it public bool enable debugging. Okay, so this could basically be if you're interested in knowing how the life cycle of gold is going, who's adding gold, who's subtracting gold, and you want to log all those changes into the debug or the log, you could do that. And then basically you would fire here if enable debugging, let's say debug or log, let's say gold was added, okay, and we could attach the information, let's say this value plus this, let's say, okay, no, or let's, in fact, what would gold would make more sense? Value was changed. Okay, this would make more sense. Now, another thing we can do is, I think you get the idea. You could do debugging depending on when what happens, but I think the float variable is currently ready to be used. Okay, so let's go, and we have a float global variable. What for I recommend is create folder data objects, then create here, go create folder global variables, then we go here, we create one called gold, and then another create global variable player health. Okay, so we need these two one, and if you see in the inspector, it's really neat. Okay, now another thing I'm noticing here is, what if we want to debug the game by changing the value and seeing what happens? Like imagine you want to see if I increase the value here, the health bar should update. Okay, so it would be really helpful to debug the system if for some reason it changed the value here and everything else worked. For that, what we need to do is go back to our script, simply do this on validate. Okay, so on validate, it gets fired only in the editor if you change a value in the inspector. Okay, so this is something need to have. Like for example, if value gets changed, I want to fire the events as well. So if during runtime you're testing the game and you want to see what happens if the health is only one, what happens if the health becomes zero, you want to test the functionality of the game by just going here and changing the value and seeing what happens in the game. Now you can do that because now all the events will properly fire and every functionality will, properly work. So let's uh, test it now. Okay. In order to test it, first of all, I'm going to have to make some throwaway scripts. Let's say this cube is interested in, I'm going to create these scripts here so they go directly inside the assets folder so I can delete them later. So let's create a new script called increase gold. Okay, create an add, and now I'm going to go and teach the script how to use the global. Okay, so all you have to do is, in order to give this script access to the gold amount, which is globally available, is to do this public global float, sorry, float global event, float global variable, and I'm going to call it global gold amount. Okay, now I have, actually this is it, now I have access to the gold amount without interfering with anyone else in the world, and now I can change the gold amount by simply doing global gold amount dot value. Let's say I want to add plus equal plus equal 100 to it. Okay, so, and I also want to do this is just to test it, to see what happens, as I want to global gold amount dot on value changed dot add listener, and I want to add debug it. Let's say debug dot log event for gold change was filed. Okay, sorry. Let's type. Okay. Now we can basically see both of those things working. Let's go. And let's see what happens. Now, if I go to my global variable, press gold in the inspector. Let's see if I press play, the gold amount should get changed, but it didn't because I did a silly thing. First of all, it does not know where the gold. So basically, all I have to do is drag this reference here, and I can give any number of objects reference to this gold data repository, and basically all of those can basically play around with the gold value. And now if I press play, gold was added by 100 and gold event was fired. Okay, so now let's go to the UI and we say, and let's quickly add a script here. Let's call it update gold amount UI. And for some reason I can't type. Okay, so this will be a simple script that should get added. Now this script is interested in knowing the gold amount and showing it. So first of all, I'm going to do this: public float global gold global value. This in this, and now what I do is in the start I say, in fact I should not do it in the get a reference. Public text mesh pro and let's say in the start, in the update, no, I don't want to do it through the update. I want to do it in the start. I say gold global value dot value change dot add listener, and then I say this, and I say whenever that value gets changed, what you should do is text pro dot text is equal to gold global value dot value dot toString, and that's about it. So now I don't need to update here. So whenever the value of gold is going to get updated, my UI is going to get updated. No hassle, no nothing. No matter what you do, the UI is going to get updated. Okay, so the gold, in fact, I again forgot that same thing. I forgot to give it a reference to the global variables, and that's just another thing wrong here. The reference. So let's quickly get the reference here. Text mesh pro is equal to text. So okay, component text mesh pro. Okay, so it's on the same object. So catch it. Now if I press play, did not get it. Okay. I think I did something wrong with this. Should it be text? No. I think. Let's try it. No, it should not work. Let's drag a reference. Let's see. The reference is correct. That should tell me if I'm doing something wrong. Yeah, I'm doing something wrong. Okay, I think the variable type is wrong. It's text. It's text. And now it's been a while. I've been away. But it's really problem to have. It says I need text mesh, and now it's not taking that. Okay, let's quickly retry again. TM Pro text. Text. This isn't even what is important for this, so I'm gonna do this simple thing in Unity UI. Okay, I'm gonna use the simple text instead. Okay, so it should be visible here. Okay, let's test it. Oh, sorry, I forgot to give it a reference. As you all know, I will not be deleting this Google I just had. Where is it? Build amount. And I need to delete the change to itself. Okay, it's 500 gold. So okay, so we have updated the gold to 500. Okay, if you notice, another problem we're just having here is you're going to increase gold. We've added 100, but every time more value is being added because in Unity editor, the scriptable objects retain their value. So it's 500 here. If I go out, it's still 500. Okay, so there's a way around it, and sometimes it doesn't matter. But if it does matter to you, and if you don't want that to happen, all you have to do is in your float global variable, go and create either on, destroy, or disable, on, enable. So use these to refresh your object. So let's do it in on, enable. Let's say value. Okay, so I'm not gonna go through this route because I don't want the event to be fired because this. So I'm gonna quickly change the value is equal to 0. Okay, so let's see if it works. Okay, so value became 0. And let's see if I go here, if I play, value became 100. If I go out, value is still 100. But if I press play again, it is still 100. Oh, sorry. Did I use on? Okay, now. On, because it's editor, the on enable gets called. Okay, one more thing that I think you should also know is if for some reason you were okay with this value not being visible in the inspector, you could basically skip this step on enable and you would not have to reset the value if you just did non-serialized here. Non-serialized. If you do non-serialized, this value will not get saved when you come out of the play mode, and that way this value will totally in reality be temporary. But if you do serialized here, serialized field here, then you will have to do this on enable value is equal to 0 to reset your scriptable object. Okay, so apparently on enable is working since when we increase gold, it gets directly increased. So it looks like it's not changing, but actually when you on enable, the script gets reloaded. Sorry, the on enable does get called. That this one, that's why you get a 0 value, and then increase gold adds 100. Okay, so if I press play, just we were just testing our system is working. Now it is 100. Same way, if we add on the second cube, we say let's suppose health script. Okay, let's say we create a script healths, create and add it, and this one will have reference to the player health, player float global variable, let's say player health global, and then no, I want it to be public, and then what you can do is basically do that same thing, add or remove health. So let's first of all dot value equal to 100. Let's say the total health is 100, and let's say player global health dot value minus equals 0.05 f. Okay, so this will gradually drop it down, and we'll be able to see if the slider is working or not. And let's go here and quickly add a script to the. In fact, before I do that, let me give it the reference to their health, and then we go into our slider. Let's add component here, health update UI. And let's create a new script here. Go there. Let's open it up. Load global. Let's say player health global variable. And let's do this. First of all, let's get a reference to the, what was it called? Slider. Slider is equal to get component slider. And let's update, and we say slider dot, not the wrong slider, we need to be r, use field, and it should not be 1 minute. Let's do this. Let's go to update. Let's say slider dot value is equal to, let's assume our maximum health is 100. So what we are, the value is expecting 0 to 1 normalized value. So what I'm going to do is mathf dot lerp 0, 1, 0 to f, and it will depend on current health, which would be global variable dot value divided by 100f. And there we go. This should set up our slider to show us the values correctly. And let's go to the slider, and let's give it a reference to, for some reason it's private public. And let's go. Let's give this a reference to our player health, and let's test it. Okay, so health is going down. Now, none of these things know anything except that they have access to this data repository, and this is what makes everything so convenient. Once you have a large enough project, and you could actually make these a little bit more fancier, having some more detailed debugging into them, so you can diagnose what's happening with the gold in your game, and you could even have some interesting gold-based mechanics integrated quite easily. Like, for example, you wouldn't have to go anywhere else, just create a new system that plays with gold. For example, you could have a system that's checking how much gold we have and fired achievements for it. Another system could basically be increasing or decreasing the price of gold based on how much gold you have. Another system could be implementing interest on the current goal you have accumulated, all of those things would only require reference to this object and nothing else. And that's why this system is very convenient. I hope you learned a lot, and I apologize. I was kind of bumbling around a little bit because I've been away for a lot of time. I'm switched to management side of game development for the last 6 to 8 months, and that has kind of made my coding, and I sometimes forget API references, but I will get back in the groove. But this is something which is very useful. I have another video planned coming up, which will teach you how to use this same approach, but for events that also tell you in the inspector who subscribed to me, who unsubscribed to me, and who are the current subscribers, and that way you will have events that tell you way more information than, and then we are going to try and implement those events into this on value changed event. So that will basically, square the circle or circle the square, however you say it, and then we will have a completely decoupled, mannered system, and that would help us not make our projects into spaghetti. And take care, everyone, and please do subscribe. A lot of followers who see my videos have not subscribed, which kind of feels, makes it harder for me to achieve the benchmarks or the place where I want to take this channel to. And take care. Thank you.